The next 2 weeks are, and this can truly be said without exaggeration, the 2 most important and significant weeks of our entire earthly existence. And this concerns every single one of us, all around the world. Because in the next 2 weeks, planetary constellations and alignments will be in play that demand crucial decisions which will have a profound impact on an entire lifetime. Of course, this will be individually tailored specifically to each person's life, specifically which major decision absolutely needs to be made right now. But now let's take a closer look at this very unique constellation, which actually only occurs once in hundreds of thousands of years. To do this, I'll take a moment to explain the special celestial chart here, with the astro detector and the various planets all around it. So right back here is our vast sky, our 12 distinct directions of the heavens with all their zodiac signs. Right in the center is the astro detector, where you can clearly see the degrees and the complex angular relationships between the planets as they currently appear in our night sky. And it is mainly focused on the moon because the moon is widely considered to be a powerful celestial activator, so to speak. Every month, it dutifully makes its rounds here and forms the wildest relationships with all the planets, thus activating each month the themes that affect us all. Additionally, the moon influences our emotions and our states of soul, which is why, if we observe ourselves and perceive how we are feeling at this moment, we can use this knowledge for ourselves by understanding what is currently happening and what needs to be done. All right, as I mentioned, the next 2 weeks are the most important weeks that concern us all, because decisions now need to be made consciously. Because if we don't make them consciously now, then things will just continue as they have been. But this will end with Pluto, which stands for transformation, not bringing about a pleasant outcome. That means it would be very wise for everyone to use these 2 weeks to look within themselves, see what's going on, and finally make the decisions that have been on the table for a year now. This is not something that is just beginning now. This is something that has been going on for over a year now, and everyone, almost everyone, has noticed it. You'd really have to be dead inside not to have noticed this time. I'm sure that everyone who is still alive inside has noticed what has been happening energetically here over the past year. And if within these 2 weeks the decision is not made to stand up for oneself, to stand up for the truth, for one's ideals, for justice, to take a position, to take a stand, then the train has basically left the station. So now is the right time to say, okay, I'm going to do it this way. I know that this is how it is. I know what's good for me. I know what my truth is. And now I'm going to act accordingly, or at least make a definitive decision, because what it's about now is the decision. The decision must be made irrevocably now. Exactly. And it all starts on the 29th. In the month of July, we look forward to the full moon, because on the 29th day of July, our moon will be positioned in the direction of the constellation Aquarius in the night sky. It will be in an exact celestial conjunction with Pluto, which is also currently moving in the direction of Aquarius. And with this significant alignment, the moon directly activates the transformative characteristics of Pluto, bringing change. This means that for us, it is especially noticeable in our feelings, in our states of soul, and this is being activated here because the current quality of time is transformative anyway. It is precisely and specifically Pluto time right now. You could say, among a great variety of other significant things. And at the same time, on the very same full moon day, Almost at the exact same hour, with only a few short hours in between, the Moon and Pluto form a powerful opposition to our Sun in Leo, which magnificently and brilliantly illuminates everything, highlighting exactly what each of us needs to transform, making it all wonderfully visible, in addition to the deeply personal and intense emotional feelings that already accompany us on this special day. And Jupiter, which simultaneously is also in conjunction, that is to say, in a very close connection with the Sun, further expands, magnifies, and amplifies the whole thing. This means you get the complete and powerful dose at the full moon of exactly what absolutely must be addressed right now, something you already know deep down. But perhaps some of us have kept putting it off because it is simply and deeply uncomfortable and challenging to face. Often, it's also about turning your whole life upside down or simply making difficult decisions that aren't easy and are therefore gladly postponed. But that's not all, because at the same time, as always at full moon, always around midday, all of this takes place between 12 noon and 4 p.m. Central European Time. If you're in a different time zone, feel free to just let me know in the comments, and I'll tell you exactly what time it is for you. But right here in Europe, it's definitely between 12 noon and 4 p.m. And in addition to these aspects, our Neptune also comes into play, again consistently occurring at the exact same moment, and always forming an extremely strong connection. That means very strong interactions and extremely powerful energies that are constantly reaching us here. And Neptune in Aries stands as a symbol for our ideals. It represents the need for us to finally see, do, and realize what is crying out within us, exactly what our soul deeply needs. This becomes exceptionally clear, particularly in the sextile with Pluto, which also stands for the ultimate truth. And here, the truth is finally coming to light, a deep sense of honesty and genuine authenticity. This is particularly well supported and favored by Uranus in Gemini, which can unexpectedly bring everything into visible focus. What that means is it gives us another opportunity, the chance not only to experience all of this in its full intensity, but also the possibility to step out of this situation. This is exactly the opportunity that Uranus provides, or what he stands for. This means that in this constellation, opportunities can arise that you can use either to free yourself from harmful relationships or to finally take the step you've wanted to take for a long time. Simply put, it's the loophole, the window. You can use it to finally be able to walk your own path, or to actually be able to make the decision to see, okay, maybe it could work out, this could be the way forward. And that's exactly how you can finally decide and also receive help, as long as you recognize it. Of course, you also need to know that this is currently favored, because people who, for example, do not have Uranus well positioned in their natal chart might not even notice such opportunities and could miss them, and it helps to know that. But this is just the beginning of the celestial events here with the full moon. Because already on Monday, the 3rd of August, the moon moves on from the sign of Aquarius to Aries and forms a conjunction, which signifies a very close and significant connection with our planet Neptune. And right here, the longing for true authenticity is activated once again, the profound wish for a content, honest, and genuine life. And it is clear that achieving this isn't easy at all, and that this deep desire this inner, almost formal sense of being torn, perhaps because you haven't really put it into practice yet, or at least haven't made the decision, can become extremely noticeable here once again. Because at the same time, we also have a trine with our Jupiter and with our Sun in Leo, again a sextile with Uranus and a sextile with Pluto. That means the connection, so to speak, changes its characteristics, but the essence remains the same. And this continues exactly like that for 2 weeks until the next new moon. I will list the dates below in the description, that is, the specific days. There are exactly 6 days, 6 dates, on which the moon has these special connections. When you can really feel it very clearly, when you are served, so to speak, with what ultimately needs to be decided, so that you can, or in the end must, give your life a completely new direction, because there is simply no other viable choice left for you. That's why I say either you keep numbing yourself inside, maybe with alcohol, with a bottle of wine in the evening, with distractions, which I really wouldn't recommend because that time is simply over. The soul wants to be acknowledged, the truth wants to come to light, and that is exactly what the new era is about. Humanity will split, one part will rise and the other will fall, and in the end, we are all right in the middle of it. We have to make a choice. That is exactly our task here. In fact, that's precisely why we're here. And it's not easy. It's not easy. I can only keep emphasizing that. It's extremely difficult to take this step. You have to make sacrifices. You might have to give up many things that were or seemed valuable to you, but the truth has its price. Freedom has its price. It's not free. And the decision is not going to be made for you, because you always kind of just hope that somehow it will simply resolve itself on its own, or that the situation will miraculously improve. It won't happen. It just doesn't happen because it's not easy. Nothing is handed to you here. You have to earn it, so to speak. You have to make a decision. Exactly. And that is precisely what is being made very clear to everyone once again during these 2 weeks. Because with the new moon, so to speak, these 2 weeks represent the phase in which absolutely everything is presented to you again, so that everyone really knows and understands, okay, there are no doubts remaining. I know exactly what I would have to do. I know what I would have to decide. And then with the new moon, or rather, it actually starts a day before the new moon. Please take a carefully close look at the planetary jumble in Leo right here. You can hardly see it anymore. Thank God there wasn't another one. Otherwise, I would have run into space issues here as well. Because already a day before the new moon, on the 11th August, the moon enters Leo and meets Mercury there, forming a conjunction. That is exactly right, with Mercury representing your intellect, your mental flexibility, and your mental clarity, so that here you get some additional reinforcement and support for the decision that has been carefully considered and reflected upon during these past 2 weeks. That is a choice that needs to be made. So you should really consciously use these 2 weeks to make a fundamental, stable, and solid long-term decision with a clear perspective on the future. And that is not easy. And that's exactly what these 2 weeks are for now. It's the full moon that brings everything to the surface again, and then the other dates, which are listed below in the table of contents. Take a look at the dates. The date, everything is listed there. Date with time. That way you'll know and can observe it again and consciously take time for it, because by the new moon it should be settled. One day before the moon meets here on August 11th with Mercury, and everything is illuminated once again. Feelings, everything can be reflected on once more. And at the same time, always occurring one day before the moon forms a harmonious sextile with both Mercury and Venus in the sign of Libra. And that's exactly it. The human heart is deeply involved as well. The love for truth, for authenticity, for your genuine purpose, for what you really want, for why you are truly here. And not this superficial and false life that, in some way, many or almost all of us are living simply because we were born into this specific modern era. Yes, the Maya had a good way of dividing things, the age of truth, the age of lies, the age of half-truths, and we've been living in an age of lies. Yes, and that's changing now. That's what this new era is about. Things should change now, and we want to be a part of that. We want truth. We want to move upward, right? And not downward. Exactly. In any case, Venus is also involved, supporting this at the new moon, one day before the new moon, and at the same time, one day before the new moon on August 11th. At the same time, there are also connections here, the relevant planetary aspects, connections with Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. So all of them have a relationship with each other one day before the new moon, so to speak, and Venus as well. They help us make the right decision here once again. Our triad, which will continue to accompany us for a while, but here it shows exact aspects, that is, the relevant ones, and then on the day of the full moon, on the 12th, during the month of August, the moon moves a little bit further along its path so that it forms a conjunction with Jupiter, and then later in the morning at 9 o'clock. It forms a trine with Saturn, which is also located in Aries, so to speak. Saturn once again represents long-term decisions and structural support, where everything is very well thought out. He provides support here once more, yes, as he is responsible for long-term matters, for things that have a foundation, a base, roots, right? And this happens once again just before the new moon arrives, so that in the evening at 7 p.m. a conjunction is formed with our sun, meaning our moon and our sun. And that would then be marking the new moon. And here it would be ideal if the decision has been made, if you now know the direction your life is taking. Okay, it's going this way and I'm not going to change it anymore, and I accept the consequences and I'm no longer afraid. Yes, and of course, this can be about all sorts of different things. They can really be things that sound completely trivial, like, for example, losing weight, just losing 10 kilos. There are people who struggle with this their whole lives, and it's really this apparent triviality that needs to be done, because for this person, it's the hardest thing in the world, while someone else just says, seriously, what's the big deal? I mean, it couldn't be any easier. But that's actually how it is, especially when you associate it with love. There are people who, instead of being given love as children, were stuffed with food, and for those people, this is the most difficult thing of all. And that would be a decision, for example, that needs to be made right now. There has to be a definitive end to it. You have to build up the necessary willpower, naturally, of course. Anything else would just be fooling yourself, if I may be so bold as to say so. Yes, you absolutely have to do it. On your own. Otherwise, it just will not work. Yes, otherwise, well, you might as well not bother, really. Exactly. And then, of course, there are also more obvious things, and I'd like to give an example here. It's about a lady I've been corresponding with for quite some time. And yes, something truly dramatic has happened here. So incredibly dramatic, in fact, that she even suggested I share this entire story here with all of you today, because it really shows what can happen if you don't make a firm decision, even though you know deep down in your heart that you should. From her own personal perspective, she says she knew it all along, and she says she absolutely should have made that difficult decision much sooner than she did. She blamed herself endlessly for the final outcome, and it was really quite a terrible experience for her to go through. It's truly a dramatically awful story. It was terrible, yet incredibly moving. It really deeply moved me. And well, it's been quite a long while now, a few months. And now we're at the point, because we write to each other regularly, that she can now see it as somewhat normal. And yes, that's why we made the choice to share this here. Simply to show how things can actually turn out in the end, and how many unfortunate people end up paying for it their whole lives because they failed to make a firm decision. All right, so this is about a woman who lived in a very difficult, aggressive relationship. She was married and is still married to a very aggressive man. And it's just usually the case, I have to say, it really is most of the time, that when you have relationship problems, there's one person who wants to find solutions for whom everything would be fine. Separation, no separation. She makes sure the children are okay. She does everything for the children so that no harm comes to them. And then there's the other person who apparently, or let's say, pretends something, but in reality is an energy drainer. And that's just how it is, because the dynamic has to be that way, because, well, that's just how the game is here on Earth. There is always a good one and, so to speak, a bad one, and then the winner or the loser. And in the end, that's actually good. And she was stuck in this relationship. And it was always very intense, filled with very dramatic situations and often very aggressive. And back then we were also writing letters to each other. And she really wanted to break up. But yes, she always kept putting it off a bit. And you kind of just wait, hoping that somehow the situation will eventually resolve itself on its own. And then after that, she didn't get in touch with me for a long while, until the message finally came through that she was really feeling terrible. She was crying so bitterly. We then talked for a long time on the phone, and it turned out that things had escalated severely with her husband. It was so extreme that the child, the younger one, who is only 3 years old, suffered permanent emotional damage from it. Since that intense incident, the child has been constantly blinking its eyes. Like this, you know? Yes, that is correct, and it was clearly because of this incredibly intense and rapidly escalating situation. And of course, the woman did everything that she possibly could afterwards. She left there immediately and never once went back, but now the poor child has unfortunately suffered this lasting damage. Yes. And that is truly and deeply tragic. She is blaming herself tremendously for what happened, or at least she certainly did. So it was really very bad. That is something that is exceptionally difficult for me personally. Because whoever among us is without sin, let them be the one to cast the first stone. Or as the old saying goes, aren't we all in some way flawed? Yes. It's very similar here, especially with serious matters, especially with trauma, because everyone has their reasons for not acting the way they should. You keep coming up with reasons for yourself. She kept telling herself it was because of the children and that she couldn't do it and so on. But in the end, she knows she should have done it a long time ago, and that these circumstances were catastrophic for the children. Not being truthful with the children is already wrong. Exactly, because she herself said, and we'll get to that in a moment, because the matter isn't even over yet. Unfortunately, it's even more serious. Yes, it is true, because despite everything she faced, and despite this truly catastrophic inner state she was constantly exposed to, she nevertheless continued to be sexually active with him. And that happened even though, by her own personal account, she was crying inside during it. So it was really terrible for her. She herself said, in her very own words, that she had consciously prostituted herself right here. So she judged herself very harshly here, I really have to say. She also wants, or she really wanted me to tell this here. So I truly believe that, as we previously discussed, it is something like a cleansing of her own guilt. This way she can at least try to use this situation to show others that things can also happen in this way, because even after she finally separated from him, moved out, and successfully got her own apartment, she unfortunately ended up getting pregnant by him once again. Well, the bottom line is that despite everything, she is, of course, still separated from him. It makes absolutely no sense because, honestly, if you don't make decisions, things won't turn out well anyway. The thing is, she herself said that for years it was clear to her she had been living in this situation for years, and she had to wait for such a drastic, such a dramatic ending in order to be able to take this step. And here the question arises, does it really have to come to this? I don't know. Sometimes maybe, yes, I almost think sometimes yes, but maybe not. It depends on how far, yes, to what extent you have that inner strength or are able to recognize it, yes, because I don't know. I only know for certain that she is forgiven. I'm absolutely sure of that because she was so bitterly yes, so I'm sure of it. The other thing now is to live with the consequences and to keep going down this path, which will certainly not be an easy task, but life itself is rarely ever easy here on Earth. That was, of course, a very hardcore example, but there are also these cases, yes, and to be honest, they're not even that rare. I know several such examples, not exactly the same, but they ended differently. For example, a few days in a coma due to health reasons, simply because you don't want to listen, because you just overdo it, yes, with alcohol or other things, or even with losing weight. It can be little things, but at some point you have to face the issue, because if you don't, yes, in the end you're feeding either the light or the darkness. And if we want to, so to speak, set ourselves energetically to this higher frequency, if we want to transform ourselves, if we want to purify ourselves, because that's what it's about now, the transformation with Pluto in Aquarius, then we have to make these decisions now. We have to decide for ourselves what each of us has to do, that right here and now, a definitive end must finally come. Because many of us are in situations where, yes, injustices are simply happening. People are exposed to various forms of blackmail, emotional, and even psychological and physical violence. Yes, and I think, yes, the range here, the diversity is enormous. But now it's time to say stop and to live with the consequences, no matter what each person has to do. So that, because now we come back to our triad, as I mentioned earlier, that it is exactly on the 29th. In July, we saw this rare, actually unique event in hundreds of thousands of years. This specific constellation with Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus forming this powerful triad in this exact 4-degree configuration will appear once more next year. It will occur again in June 2027 at 6 degrees. And that will be the second and only other time in many, many thousands, even hundreds of thousands of years that such an alignment occurs. And this is exactly the time now to make the decision, to look at it, for each person to finally make the decision for themselves, okay, to be honest with themselves, I'm going to do it and I'm going to lose weight now, or I'm going to quit drinking alcohol now, or I'm not going to distract myself anymore. I face the situation head on. I change something. I leave this environment. I stand up for myself. I quit this job, even if I don't know what comes next. But you just have to stop. You have to put an end to injustices or to things that don't align with your own inner truth. You have to draw a clear line here now. Exactly, and that, or rather, a final decision needs to be reached now. And following that, this restructuring process can be implemented up until June 2027. You basically have a year after making this decision. You have a year to set everything in motion so that it really happens, because after that, there will be other things to do. You finally have to clear out all the old crap, and now you have a year to do it. until June 2027, so to speak. You break away from old harmful connections. You find new paths, new structures, whatever it is that each person needs to resolve for themselves here. That needs to be fully completed now, because after June 2027, to be precise, certain situations will continue to unfold. Since you want to grow and you finally want to step into the life you've always envisioned for yourself, but because of traumas or things that simply need to be resolved, you haven't been able to do so just yet. And those exactly you can finally start to tackle. So that is all for now regarding the coming month and the outer moon. Now we will continue our discussion by focusing on the inner moon. Because for those of you who are already participating, we take a close look at the inner moon within your birth chart every single month. This practice makes a big difference in your understanding, because this way you can specifically observe your own emotional patterns as they arise each month. As a result of this discovery, there is a lunar coding system, and based on this lunar coding system, it becomes precisely clear on which specific dates each month these patterns become visible to the naked eye. And this way, you can observe things even better and work on them even more effectively. And that is precisely what we are going to do right now. And if you are completely new here and tuning in for the very first time, there is a link right here below, the Quick Start link, where you can find out how to get yourself started here really quickly. Well, you will still need to invest a few hours, but after that, you can join in and track your inner moon, marking it each and every month, and then following along to see what is going on. Otherwise, as always at the end of every video, please do not forget to take a moment to listen to the aspects melody, so that our hearts and minds can join in harmony as well. Because the aspects are intricately concealed deep within this aspects melody, all made possible through the principles of Pythagorean fractional mathematics. First, we will punch our little hole in the center again, because that way we can easily attach the astro detector afterwards, even if the lines have already been drawn. Otherwise, we won't be able to find the hole in the center quite so easily anymore. For everyone who is just joining us and is new here, back in episode 5, I explain how to properly and securely attach the astro detector to the horoscope. Exactly. For that step, I turn the horoscope over once and secure it very firmly on the back with some adhesive tape just to make it much more stable. You don't have to do this, but you can certainly do it if you happen to have some tape at home. Then place an eraser or a cork under the horoscope, right under the center point here. And with the earring back or whatever other tool you might use, I also explain this in episode 5, you could also use a thumbtack. Just carefully poke a small little hole in it. Gently poke it right into the exact center point. And with that, we've already prepared it. Now let's start drawing things in. The moon on the 27th of the month is located specifically on July 27th at exactly 5 degrees in the sign of Capricorn. Right at 2 o'clock in the morning. The very next position would then be located precisely at 17 degrees in Capricorn. On the 28th of July. And at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we have it right here at 11 degrees in Capricorn. The upcoming next position can be found located within the constellation of Capricorn in the night sky. On the 29th of July. And at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we have it here at 23 degrees in Capricorn. The upcoming position is found at 11 degrees in Aquarius. On the 30th of July, and at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we have it here at 5 degrees in Aquarius. Moving on, the subsequent position is located at 23 degrees in the sign of Aquarius. On the 31st of July, and at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we have it here at 17 degrees in Aquarius. The next position is found at 6 degrees in Pisces. On August 1st, on the 1st of August, and at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we have it right here at 29.5 degrees in Aquarius. The next position is located at 18 degrees in Pisces. On August 2nd, and at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we have it here at 12 degrees in Pisces. The following celestial position is located at 2 degrees in Aries. On the 3rd of August, and at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we have it here at 25 degrees in Pisces. The following position is at 15 degrees in Aries. On the 4th of August, and at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we have it here at 8.5 degrees in Aries. The next position is located at 28 degrees in Aries. On the 5th of August, and at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we have it here at 21.5 degrees in Aries. The very next position is located at 12 degrees in Taurus. On the 6th of August, and at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it is located right here at 5 degrees in Taurus. The next position is situated at 26 degrees in Taurus. On the 7th of August, and at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we have it here at 19 degrees in Taurus. The next position can be found at 10 degrees in Gemini. On the 8th of August, And at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it is right here at 3 degrees in Gemini. The next position is located right exactly at 25 degrees in Gemini. On the 9th of August. And at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we have it here at 17.5 degrees in Gemini. Now the next position is at 10 degrees within Cancer. Back on August the 10th, and at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it is at 2.5 degrees in Cancer. The next position is found at 24 degrees in Cancer. On August 11th, and at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it is here at 17 degrees in Cancer. Moving forward, our next position is located at 9 degrees in the sign of Leo. On the 12th of August. And at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we have it right here at 1.5 degrees in Leo. Moving forward, the next specific position is situated at exactly 24 degrees in Leo. On August 13th, and at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we have it here at 16.5 degrees in Leo. The very next position is currently situated at 8 degrees Emus within the zodiac sign of Virgo. On August 14th, and at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it is located here at the 1st degree in Virgo. The next position we find is at 22 degrees within the zodiac sign of Virgo. On August 15th, and at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we have it here at 15 degrees in Virgo. Then it continues further at the mark of 5 degrees in Libra. On August 16th, and at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it is located right here at 28.5 degrees in Virgo. Then it continues at 18 degrees within the sign of Libra. On August 17th, and precisely at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we can see it right here, at exactly 11.5 degrees in the sign of Libra. As we move forward, the next position will then be situated at 1 degree in Scorpio. more specifically on August 18th. And right here at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we are currently still sitting at 24.5 degrees in Libra. It continues at 13 degrees within the sign of Scorpio. On the 19th of August, and here at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it is at 7 degrees. The next position we find is located specifically at 25 degrees in the sign of Scorpio. On August 20th, and at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it is at 19 degrees in Scorpio. The next position is located at 7 degrees in Sagittarius. On August 21st, and at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it is here at 1 degree in Sagittarius. Then it continues at 19 degrees in Sagittarius. On the 22nd of August. And at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it is here at 13 degrees in Sagittarius. The subsequent position is then located precisely at 1 degree in Capricorn. That would also be the last one for this particular cycle. Then, on the 23rd of August at exactly 12 noon, it is located right here at 25 degrees within the constellation of Sagittarius. And now I'll also go ahead and explain to you the dates that were discussed in the first half of the video, the ones for the outer moon, which are of course more general overall. But here, if you know this, you can also compare it with your inner moon, and then you can see exactly where your specific theme will be affected here, and will be deeply impacted by these celestial movements. And so you can slowly start to integrate this and also get used to it, because in the future we will of course be looking at this more and more. On the one hand, the inner moon, and on the other, the outer moon, because a major transformation is underway here. How this unfolds for each of us individually is of course different for everyone. And that's how you can see it. On the outside, that's what's currently active. Where does it touch? Also on the inside. Exactly. And I'll just quickly list them now. And for these key dates, I simply mark a big red dot for myself. So I know, okay, something is happening with the outer moon now. That way, you might also be prepared if you're going to work or anywhere else. All right, it's happening on the outside, and maybe not so much on the inside, because for me, maybe not much is being touched internally right now. From that, you can already start to distinguish what's actually happening on the outside now and what's going on inside me. Exactly, and the next date would then be the 3rd of August. Then it's the 7th of August. Then we have the 11th of August, which is precisely 1 full day before the arrival of the next new moon phase in the lunar cycle. Then we have the 12th If we take a closer look at the month of August, then the arrival of the new moon, right then, something very significant is happening here with our planetary triad. And then it continues with the 16th of August, where there are also a lot of complex connections, but I've listed all of them in the summary for those of you who are already more advanced practitioners, of course. That's for those who are still interested in the specifics, and then we see it again on the 20th. August, so it consistently maintains the very same characteristic. Always the same essence is active here. That means it's like a melody. The same song is being played on these days, and they all essentially belong together in a unified way, so to speak. And now we also add the moon phases. That's precisely the way that we have come to know it as well. And you can simply and easily copy them directly into here from the moon phase calendar. Here we have on July 29th, the full moon. We can place this item directly underneath the spot. That is a very significant and important date, the 29th of July, as you can already see. Then it continues with the waning moon, namely on the 6th. In the month of August, we turn our horoscope to the 6th of August, and we can simply copy the astrological symbol directly from the calendar here. Following that, we are going to experience the new moon on the 12th of August, which is also a very important date here that you should definitely keep in mind. There we have the 11th and the 12th. That is when things really get going here. And as for the waning moon, we will see that again in the next cycle on August 28th. And then our horoscope is fully ready to use once again for the following month. Now we'll attach the astro detector. And now we'll go ahead and enter the precise date and time into our moon code calendar so that we can accurately determine when our various personal aspects are active throughout the lunar cycle. That specific event is going to happen in 8 days, which gives you plenty of time to observe it quite comfortably, and you will be able to know exactly what is happening. For example, with the conjunction, which is where the natal moon is located, right here in this particular spot. And for my personal reading, that falls on August 20th. It becomes active at 4 a.m. in the early morning, because here on the 20th, the alignment is very clear for us to see. It is August and it's currently 2 a.m. Since the moon is exactly 1 degree further away from me, and 1 degree represents about 2 hours, that means it is actually 4 a.m. right here. So, I know for certain that my moon, my brand new lunar cycle, so to speak, officially starts on the 20th. August at 4 a.m. is already quite active. Although this would already be the next conjunction, as you can clearly see right here. This is the 20th of the month, August. But we start here on July 29th. That means, naturally, and of course, we also have to refer back to the old horoscope here. If this doesn't work out quite as expected, as is essentially the case for me right now, then I have to go back and find my conjunction from last month and see, well, when exactly was that? Let me check. This means that the planetary conjunction occurring right here, specifically the particular one we are tracking for this month, is scheduled to occur on the 23rd day of the month of July. Specifically, the event takes place at 10 p.m. because on July 24th, the time here is exactly 2 o'clock in the morning. Since 1 degree of difference is equal to 2 hours, and here it is 2 degrees less, which means 4 hours less, therefore my conjunction occurs at 10 p.m. and my new cycle officially begins on the 24th of July. At 10 o'clock in the evening. And the subcodes are simultaneously active at the same time. They're also deeply involved in this specific process here. And that happens directly in the evening on July 24th. In my case, I observe it because that's when my conjunction is active here. And that's when the patterns are particularly noticeable, especially the recurring ones and especially the new cycle, because that's when it starts to take shape here, whereas now on August 20th. Then the next cycle would begin all over again, which means that I'm going to need to get a brand new sheet once again, which will come in the next month. And of course, this specific timing can certainly vary slightly for everyone involved, but that's perfectly okay. You simply have to start somewhere, and then in the second month you just keep going, and sometimes you have to take a moment to refer back to the old horoscope, because a specific date could still fall there, depending on exactly how things line up. And so we just keep looking here. It's really quite simple, almost like child's play. You simply place the 0-degree conjunction line on the natal moon in the birth chart. And now look at the sextile. What do I have there, and exactly what date is there? Here we have the 28th. In the month of July, and because there is a difference of exactly 2 degrees until 2 o'clock at night, here again we have 10 p.m. in the evening, because 1 degree is about 2 hours. So I will go ahead and record this information again in my sextile section. That would be the 28th day of July. In July at 10 o'clock in the evening, once again at night, the subcodes are consistently active and operational at the same time here as well. Consequently, this means that I am aware I must observe on the 24th of July, and I also observe on the 28th of July. This way, everything is really well structured and you don't have to keep watching all the time. It's enough if you just set aside the whole evening, because logically, it's also active before and after. That's just the exact connection, but of course it's also active before and after. And now let's look at the square aspect. We simply look at where the square is pointing. The square points to the 31st. In the month of July and at 2 p.m. here, the temperature would reach 29.5 degrees. We have a significant difference of 3 degrees here. 3 degrees equals 6 hours. 2 p.m. minus 6 hours is 8 a.m. And this calculation indicates that on the 31st of July at 8 a.m., at this moment, my square is fully active and functioning as intended, and of course, it naturally continues to proceed in this exact manner right here within the system. Then you examine the trine. Then you look at the opposition and read off the date and time here. Then you look at the minus trine, which we also have, and that's important. That's the integration. That's the processing, which otherwise is never considered, but here it's very important as our second semicircle is closing here. And then you look at the minus square and the minus sextile. And then we'd be right back at the very next round. This is a cycle to keep an eye on within the month. And here we have the specific calendar days when these patterns, when our individual patterns, actually start to become significantly more visible. That's why it's more than sufficient to observe this during these specific days. Everything else is actually entirely unnecessary for effective development at the moment. You can really completely omit everything else. It's absolutely more than enough if you focus on this moon code, because right here you will recognize your own melody, you will recognize your unique rhythm, and based on this recognition, everything else can naturally unfold. Otherwise, you simply wouldn't see the forest for the trees. The next detailed moon position drawing video for the following month is currently expected to be released exactly on August 16th, 2026. And in this upcoming video, we will then carefully draw the various moon positions starting from the 23rd of the month of August to the 19th of September into our horoscopes. And now, as already announced, we present to you the aspects melody. Enjoy listening, and we will see you again next time. Oh, ciao, ciao.